Hello, everybody. Cliff Jones with the Clarity Channel. We're all about helping you get clarity for life. Today, I'm pleased to have Dallas Cowan, the co-founder of CalmWaves, based here in the Phoenix Valley of the Sun area. Dallas, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Cliff. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
So, everybody, in the minutes that lie ahead, Dallas and I are going to talk about the business that he and his father co-founded. And the reason I'm passionate about sharing this with you is it's all about helping the human brain optimize itself. Is that a fair way to summarize what the technology
100%.
is doing?
100%. We help make your brain work bigger, faster, stronger. That's basically what we do in a nutshell.
Okay, so in my humble opinion, we've got an epidemic of mental health
Yep.
issues going on in every community worldwide. Stress is at an all-time high. We've got some serious health issues. So let's start with the genesis aspect of this. Dallas, how did you and your father get started with this business?
Yeah, so we started this about 4 years ago, but my dad's been in the mental health clinical side for the last 35 years. He's done over 30,000 brain improvement sessions. He started with helping kids get off of Ritalin by strengthening their brain. So I grew up in a household where I could make Pac-Man go with my brain using electrodes, using neurofeedback stuff. So I was just always familiar with this. I was always used to it. And so I just saw some of the technologies he was using where someone would come in with anxiety or depression or PTSD or concussions or all these different things. And even though he knew how to do the talk therapy side of it, he really introduced a lot of these technologies that were helping the brain optimize. Whether it's cranial electrical stimulation, something that they could take home with them, or direct neurofeedback, where actually the story that got me going, Dad, I want to work with you. I want to find out what you're doing. Is he's telling me this story about this lady who came in. She had debilitating anxiety, and she could barely even come in. So she comes in. My dad hooks her up with direct neurofeedback, all things that I'll explain a little bit later. But a little electrodes on her head, and basically direct neurofeedback is your brain and the computer talk back and forth to each other. And there's this little radio waves that are in the mimicking your dominant brainwave. And your brain goes, that's super cool. And it unsticks outside of it. So she gets there, she gets wired up, but it hits a button on her computer and she goes, oh, it's gone. And he goes, what's gone? She goes, my anxiety, it's gone. And from that point on, she and how the technology kind of works, it lasts about 24 hours, and then you do another session and it lasts 48 hours, and then you do another session last week. And he helped her get through her anxiety without even talking to her about what was causing her anxiety because it was all just stored in the brain. So a big thing that we do distinction is there's mental health, mental performance for our athletes that we work with, but then there's also brain health and brain performance. And we stay in the brain performance side of things. So we do things that are challenging your brain a little bit to see how it's performing and where's the anxiety live. And then we introduce products or different types of tools like tapping, or why does gratitude help with your brain? So we take a brain aspect of it. We look at the brain side of it to help with whatever issues that are going on. So I heard that story and was like, Dad, I want to learn how to use this technology. So he moved out here to Scottsdale, Arizona, and we kind of started the process with Calm Waves of just helping people just in different aspects. We also set up brain health centers. So we've done that a couple times for like foster care places, mental health centers that want to add brain technologies to their facility, but don't know how to do it. So we've done it from the organizational standpoint all the way down to the individual. So that's kind of what we do.
So, Dallas, it almost sounds too good to be true,
Mhm.
because, and I want you to explain this to everybody who's listening, because most people would agree, anxiety, depression,
Mhm.
all sorts of mental health issues gone wild. So why is this technology so effective? How does the FDA fit into this?
Mhm.
Tell us
Yeah,
about that.
yeah, that's a great question. So when it comes to anxiety, I mean, I was, for example, I was diagnosed with PTSD. Anxiety was a huge thing from my PTSD, and it was from working with kids in the foster care system. And because my brain was turned on for so long, you look at the military, you look at all of these types of things, there's all of these outside forces that are impacting the organ of the brain. So because I was working with the kids in the foster care system and I was always on, it was just overcharging my brain. I mean, you can see it. If you do a brain scan, and you can see these brain scans and it's all red. Why is it red? Oh, it's because this overactivity of the brain. And so, what these technologies do is they allow the brain to get into the parasympathetic nervous system. That's a fancy way of saying into your calm state. So, those are the two things. You have your fight and flight, which your brain's created to do. It's created to be in fight and flight because you don't want to die. You know, if there's a tiger in the corner, okay, your fight and flight goes on. So, with that overactivity of the fight and flight, sometimes you can get stuck in that state and you can never regulate off of it. So the technologies we introduced, like this is the portable one. It's called the Calm Box. Called the Calm Box. It's a cranial electrical stimulation. It's FDA approved for insomnia and anxiety. And what this does is you hook it up to your ears, boop, boop, you turn it on, and it sends a little electrical pulse through this part, through the deep parts of your brain, your amygdala, and it just turns it down. It just allows the brain to go, you're safe, you're good. So this is a tool. I mean, it's so fun to be able to have someone order it and be like, I have anxiety, and like, try this. And they go, oh my gosh, it just helped me relax. I'm gonna go take a nap. So it just allows the brain to kind of heal and just relax in a natural way. No drugs, no sort of stimulants. That's the big thing. That's where we're really excited about introducing to the marketplace.
It sounds like you're helping people balance their brains in the
Mhm.
realm of neuroplasticity, which would be a natural process some of us can achieve through meditation,
Mhm.
mindfulness practice, things like
Yep.
that. Are we on the same page? Is that
Yeah,
essentially?
absolutely. Yeah, and I think with meditation and mindfulness, you're trying to do it from the outside in. That's another kind of like difference. Okay, you've got the outside in coming in where I have to use, meditation to try to do this. I'm trying to get this in. We do it from the inside out. So we're going, let's go find that part of the brain that you're trying to meditate to calm down, and let's just start this. Let's just do this now. So this is actually great to use with meditation or with prayer or for with thought because it allows you to stay in that meditative state longer and deeper because you're actually doing it with your brain as well.
Well, you described the woman who your father worked with who had
Mhm.
anxiety with a near instant result. Tell us
Mhm.
what's typical in terms of a timeline for people to start noticing a difference.
So, yes. So I would say two different technologies that we're talking about. We've got cranial electrical stimulation. This is a $300 product. We sell it. We're distributors of it. Usually you feel it within the first 15 minutes. Usually in the first week, you'll know if it works or not. That's what we tell people. Like you order one, if it doesn't work in a week, send it back. We'll refund your money. We actually give you a 60-day guarantee for it. But usually I can sit with somebody who, like, for example, we had a friend of ours who's a nurse. She's an ER nurse. She used it, turned it on. Instantly, she goes, what did you just do to me? She just started melting because her brain was just so overactive because all the stuff. It just allowed the brain just to kind of slow down. So we usually just say, like, give it a week, see what you think about it. I use it during emails, something I don't want to do. Any sort of like, my brain's like, I hate this. Turn it on, allows me to focus. So this is kind of the $300 product. And then we do another one. It's called direct neurofeedback, which is more for in a clinical environment where it helps actually like heal your brain. And usually you feel results within the first session.
Who should use which approach or who
So
and when?
So I always recommend this first. I always say, like, if you have some sort of anxiety, sleep issues, even depression, it is actually FDA approved for depression. There's a whole story behind the manufacturers and saying why they didn't get the anyway, it is for depression too. It helps with that as well. But I always say use this first, try it. It's kind of level one. Hey, let me just do some level one stuff. This might help you. You might go, I'm good to go. Like my anxiety's down, I sleep better. I'm I don't need anything else. If there's still some resistance, if you're still like, man, I feel like I still have some anxiety, or you've played professional football, have a lot of concussions, um, head trauma, you're in the military, so you have PTSD, any sort of kind of extreme kind of stuff, I always recommend direct neurofeedback. Finding somebody who does those services. There's about 3, 4 different people here in Phoenix that we've set up that do this. There's other places across the country too. So if anybody's interested in, we'll leave my contact information later, but who's ever interested in it, we can usually be able to connect people who have this technology, and you can go to them.
You're describing two markets, normal people like me, and millions of us who are dealing with the stresses of life, anxiety,
Yep.
depression, addiction. I want to talk a little bit about addiction and any
Yep.
experience you've had in helping people work through that. But then you also have mentioned you do work with professional athletes. So let's spend
Mhm.
some time talking about why professional athletes would use this, how they use it, and what kind of impact you're noticing
Yeah,
from.
great question. So professional athletes are in a very stressed environment. And a lot of times they'll use downers or uppers to try to get them into their peak performance. So if you think of like peak performance scale, you can never remember it. It's like the something Dixon curve with peak performance, where peak performance is here at the top, and you've got boredom on one side and you've got anxiety on the other side. Meaning, if you're not interested in doing the thing, you're not going to have peak performance. And so, athletes are always looking for that, that at the top. And then they have the other side, which is more common, which is anxiety. Hey, I threw a pitch, guy hit a double off the wall. Now I'm anxious. So now my peak performance goes down. Bless you. Now my peak performance goes down here. If you're watching the playoffs are going, watch any game, but you'll see, that happen. So what the Calm Box does, we always tell athletes to use it pre-game, because the goal of peak performance also is calm focus. It's done by Tim Galloway, who wrote The Inner Game of Tennis, talks about calm focus. And that's what the Calm Box gives, is allows you to have that, you're not in that anxious state. You might need to do some things to get into like the focus state a little bit. You can do meditation, you can do breathing exercises, trying to get more blood flow to your brain, kind of that focus, but it doesn't allow you to get to that other side, what is that anxious. So we have a kicker right now who's using it, and he says his heart rate never goes up by using the Calm Box beforehand. And then post game, it helps them fall asleep. That's another. So it's calm, relaxed, where some players, professional baseball players or other people have the hardest time falling asleep. And so that's when they use alcohol, they use, you know, other downers. There was a player, Tyler Skaggs, who died, years ago, and he had fentanyl in his drugs that he was taking, and it killed him instantly. But he was trying to be loosey goosey. That was his goal. And then they found out a bunch of players, yeah, we go to these things because we can't fall asleep. So that's what we recommend: pre-game, post-game, use this, and we've seen really good results with it.
What you're describing, I think, is what's commonly referred to as a flow state, which I've
Correct.
experienced as an athlete, having
Right.
stumbled upon Timothy Galloway's book, Inner Game of Tennis, in the
Yep.
early 80s as a collegiate athlete.
Yep.
And I've been able to achieve that and sustain it through meditation. Also, having been through PTSD, I wish I had known about your technology sooner
Yep.
because my path to healing has been a long one. And a lot of people I talk to about meditation say, "Oh, I tried it, didn't work for me," and they're quite dismissive of it. What's your experience with people, whether they've meditated or not, um, sticking with this long enough to see a benefit if it's not making an impact early on?
Are you talking about meditation or the technology?
Your technology in contrast to meditation, which seems
Yeah.
to be almost, hey, I don't have time for this. It's not going to
Correct.
work for me. And they quickly abandon it. But you're describing an efficacy that's near immediate, unless,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. So we have probably a 95% success rate with this technology. I've had one person send it back and it was just like ADHD didn't work. I'm like, cool, awesome. Like send it back to me. So rarely do we have somebody who comes in and says, "Oh, I don't like this." They usually feel something. It all depends on like the scale of it. Anybody who has a Whoop as well, we always say look at your HRV scores. And usually people who do direct neurofeedback or this Calm Box, they'll be able to have a higher HRV score. But yeah, we have pretty because this is passive, and as you said at the beginning, it's like this sounds too good to be true. I need to do work in order to do this. Like I have anxiety. Why is it that I'm not taking a pill and it's working, or I just have to put it to my ears and I turn it on and it works. But yeah, we have pretty much 90% of the people that use this feel something in the first 15, 30 minutes.
You mentioned an acronym HRV. Would you describe what that is,
Yeah.
please?
So HRV, if you ever go to Whoop, if anyone has a Whoop, it's the main thing that is you see a tracker for golfers or anything like that. HRV is heart rate variability. So heart rate variability is directly connected to your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So if you have a low HRV score, it means that you are most likely in your let me back up. You create a baseline first. So you have a baseline that might be like 50 or 60 or whatever it is. And you do a baseline. And then if you've had a rough night, your HRV score will be lower. But then you can also have it be higher if you get good rest and all those types of things. So the Whoop or your Apple Watch or all of those types of things that says, hey, you're fully rested, you can go do something. It's all based off of HRV score.
You mentioned the resistance you feel before doing something you need to do but may not want to do. Artists
Mhm,
deal with that. In a
mhm,
way, it's a form of resistance that creates procrastination, correct?
Yep.
So first of all, why do you think that exists cognitively? Where's that resistance coming from? And then how does Combox smooth that out, for lack of a better way to put it?
Yeah. So for my resistance type of things, it's usually based off of anxiety. It's usually something based off of like, okay, I need to do this, but then I'm thinking about something else. And then becomes too like overwhelming in that sense. Or, you've got that coach, that part of your brain's like, you're not going to want to do this. Like you can do this later. Like that voice in the head. And so what the call box is able to do is to help one, those things that you think about all the time and focus it into one thought. Okay, I'm just thinking through one thing at a time. I'm able to focus on this. I got an email that came in. Oh, I can do this later. Okay, I'm going to stay on task rather than being email came in. I'm answering that email now in my head and not focusing on what's in front of me. So the Calm Box helps focus it into um, one type of thought, as someone might say. And so from the resistance standpoint, also what a study has been able to say too is with the Calm Box, because it's electricity going in your brain is a battery. Your brain actually has voltage going into it. So what a study has said about the Calm Box CES units in general is that they allow enough electricity to go into the neurons of your brain and allow them to not fire, but be ready to fire. Because when you're doing a thought, when you're doing any sort of learning something new, they fire. They go boom, and oh, that's super cool. And then they need energy again, they fire. So this helps build up that battery back into your brain so that you can work through that procrastination and work through that thought in your head that you're like, oh, I can do this later. Like, no, I have enough battery in my head to now do this work.
So we, as a population, hear and read more about trauma,
Mhm.
the impact trauma has on our minds and bodies. So let's spend some time on the
Yep.
foster care community where I believe you started.
Yep.
Foster care, big problem worldwide. Especially, we're in the Phoenix Valley of the Sun area. So tell us about your experience working with foster care children. what the trauma is all about that they're dealing with,
Yeah.
which is somewhat self-evident in the impact you've been able to have.
Yeah. So there's a good, so trauma is a very interesting thing because everybody has some sort of their own trauma. I would have to say there's a great, if you ever want to look at a score, have you heard of ACEs score? Adverse
No,
childhood. So
no.
ACEs score is a fantastic thing to do. If anyone can go look up, I think it's a adverse childhood something score. I'm breaking that, but it's adverse childhood. But it's basically you go through this list and it's about I think 15, 13 questions. And you go, did I have this? Yes. Did I have this? Yes. Or my parents divorced? Yes. And if you do your score, you're actually able to see that the higher the score, the more likely you're able to be addicted to drugs, alcohol, any of those things based off of the ACEs score. So I'm going to start with that. Lots of people have different types of trauma. Foster care, you already know there's some sort of trauma that's happened in their life. That's why they're taken from their parents. They've had a traumatic experience, whether you're a baby that is taken because of meth or a teenager who's taken and the police taken because of some abuse that's going on in the home. So all of those things happen. So yes, so my wife and I wanted to become foster parents. So we're like, we feel like God's leading us to do this. So we jumped in. The person that was teaching our class goes, hey, you want to be group home parents? And we're like, what is group home? What's a group home? And group home is basically for kids that are not in adopted families, but need a place to go, usually older kids. And they're put in these homes. So there's usually like 8 to 10 of them in a home. And they're just taken care of or looked after, I would say. And so my wife and I actually said, hey, let's go join one of these homes that are trying to do something different. Let's try to do something, giving them a more of a mom and dad experience. Not replacing their mom and dad, but at least trying to give them a structure and a foundation. So that's what we jumped in to do. So we had 18 girls go through our home in 2 years. We were there for 2 years. We ended up, and there anywhere ranges from 9 years old to 20 years old. And we ended up adopting our daughter, who's in the other room, she's 17 now, out of the group home. So we got to experience that kind of trauma and the effects of it, firsthand. And it's a brain thing. It's a brain response. I mean, what trauma does is, though your brain tries to do is tries to stick you in a box. So it tries to go, I need to protect you from this. I need to protect you from this. So a lot of, developmental things are stunted. Anger, emotional regulation is through the roof, but it's a trauma response. It's not, so you have to really, determine, it's a trauma response or is this a teenager response? So I am very empathetic to, people that are struggling in different areas, especially if they've had some sort of trauma in their life, because the brain is one protecting them, and then also is just so deregulated. They're just looking for anything, whether, any sort of dopamine, just to try to help them, figure stuff out.
Considering you did that, and I commend you for that. I don't believe I have the courage for that. We raised two children, and that in and of itself was a very high calling. But I can't
Mhm.
imagine the stress that went through
Mhm.
these children coming and going. So, talk about the mental health impact on you and your wife through
Yeah.
that experience, and how Calm Waves, Calmbox helped or didn't, or was that later?
That was later. I think every caretaker and every child should be having a calm box and having some sort of direct neurofeedback because it's passive. That's what, we set it up at a place that works with aged out foster kids. Um, because when you think about, and this is where I have to, we have a mental health crisis. Nobody knows how to solve it. It's not done by getting more counselors. I don't believe so. Because talk therapy is good, but talk therapy also, you're relying on the counselor to know what he's doing. My dad's a very good counselor, but he's not scalable, you know. But the Calm Box is, direct neurofeedback is, because you're relying on the technology. So the girls at the group home, they went to therapy. I dropped them off. I'd say 90% of the counselors that were not helpful. One we had that was really good. and she helped one of the girls. So I don't want a blanket statement and say every counselor is horrible and they shouldn't do it. But we have there's a therapist office that we did with the direct neurofeedback and with the call box. They both have both of those, and they do talk therapy and they do direct neurofeedback. So they help heal the brain and they help someone talk through it, and they're seeing amazing results. They're seeing people being able to regulate and then work through their issues rather than go, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. So that's the approach that I think even foster care should take is, hey, you understand that they've had trauma. Let's give them healing in the brain and then let's help them talk through it too.
So it seems to me that beyond the foster care, prison recidivism issue that's prevalent, it's true that there aren't enough therapists or counselors. The licensing education process, it takes time, it takes money. And then there's the whole efficacy part. I can say through my experience working with counselors and psychologists over the years for our family or me personally, it's hit or miss. That
Yep.
relationship, that bedside manner, has a lot to do with outcome. I didn't have the patience for lots of therapy sessions, so in order to deal with my own mental health issues, I've tried a number of things: binaural beats,
Mm-hmm.
solfeggio frequency, meditation, many different forms of meditation. Again, though, with the problem so rampant and widespread in people's inherent impatience, what you're describing is a simple, very effective way people can basically balance their brains faster than potentially with therapy. Not knocking therapy, but that's what you're
Nope.
describing.
Yes, this is a scalable solution, and it's been very hard to get this into certain places. I mean, we've had situations where we've been at a nonprofit here in town. I won't name them. We were on the doorstep of, I mean, everyone loved it. We did a demonstration. The guy felt it. Oh, this is great. As soon as it went to the C-suite, dead silence.
Why?
We're like, no idea. They didn't call us back. Somebody in the went, I don't understand this. I don't want to do it. We've had even the foster care place, the first people that were going to donate to it, it was a local church here. They didn't want the liability. They're like, oh, they're doing something with the brain. I don't want the liability. I'm like, do you know what the drugs they're giving these kids? If you want to talk about liability, let's talk about liability. Same thing. We were working with a D1 program, football program. We were out there. We were about to launch a brain health and performance center for their college athletes that deal with CTE and concussion symptoms. And their athletic trainer said, I don't want to do this. He
Any
has no
reason?
idea. He didn't think, he was like, it's too much work. And I don't understand it. And we're here to talk to you about this. And they're like, let's do a pilot program. Let's do all these types of things. But also I'm going, look at your staff. You have one mental performance coach for 200 kids. You're not going to give them anything. Why don't you set up, and it's not a money issue. So why don't you give everybody a calm box? So for their anxiety, why don't you get, and the calm box, okay, it's FDA approved and it's a class 2 medical device. Class 2 medical device means it's as safe as contact lenses.
So talk about the practitioners and the
Ooh.
people who could use this in their practice to replace a modality they're using now or complement it. How is that related to your
Yes.
business and your business model?
So practitioners are another type of hurdle to get through. One, I assumed everyone knew what neurofeedback was going into this. They don't. They're not taught it in school. They're not taught anything about the brain. It's a very the mental health, if you look at from a talk therapy standpoint, hasn't really had any revolutions in the last 100 years. It's pretty much the same thing over and over again. So, it's got the diagnosis, it's got those types of things. This is pretty revolutionary to them. I've had practitioners going on one side be like, oh, this is cool, but if I'm helping my patients faster, how do I get paid? So from a practitioner standpoint, it's more about the money than more than anything. Um, I, it's true. I mean, I've got people that, or it's the education side of it where they're kind of comfortable. They're like, I've got my caseload. I have to add this new thing into it. I'm good. Um, and my dad's a therapist. Like he's doctorate in psychology. He's doing it for 35 years, and it's even hard to get people to take this seriously. Um, if you, I have another. What's your thoughts on ketamine?
I've never undergone the therapy. I've read a little bit about it. I understand there's some breakthroughs with it. I have a friend who's a therapist with a very successful practice, and that's the cornerstone of her practice in partnership with a medical doctor. So tell us
Okay,
about ketamine and what you know about it.
so this is what I know about ketamine. Appreciate. I know it's a cornerstone in some places. When I talk about layers, this is first layer. It's safe. Someone has anxiety. Let's go there. Second layer, direct neurofeedback. Super safe. Um, I think what happens is people jump from talk therapy to ketamine, and that can be dangerous because ketamine is its efficacy as a horse tranquilizer. Um, and my dad has had certain people come back with adverse effects where people have come in and gone, I don't have any more memories. So, but I do know people that in extreme situations, like firefighters, that have done direct neurofeedback and ketamine, and it's changed their life. So when I introduce um, direct neurofeedback to people, I like to introduce it as that, okay, let's go through the steps with somebody. And this is a really good step for a patient to have. Don't just bring them to, I have anxiety. Oh, let's bring you to ketamine. The other part about it is you can make a lot of money doing ketamine. That's the other part about it. It's very expensive. Direct neurofeedback is not that expensive and it helps people quickly. So that is something that I run into is a cash flow issue sometimes.
Okay, so I want to make sure I understand you and that everybody listening hears this clearly. Your direct experience is that professionals in mental health will reject your technology because it's bad for their business?
Yes. I that when I have when I've had conversations with some people, not everybody, a lot of people will see it if they see like the efficacy of it, they'll buy it. The people who purchase it from us, they've gone, this helps people. I want to do this. This helps people. But I've sat in with practitioners who are going, I'm going, this is going to help your patient population. And they're like, oh, we're going to do this other form because we know we can make more money off of this. Whether
So,
it's,
so these may not be medical doctors who have taken a Hippocratic oath, but that's the next layer of professional who may
Mhm.
not have taken that oath, who is basically saying, I'm rejecting something that could help my patients faster than I can because it would be bad for my business.
Yes, I've had that conversation with people. I've gone through down that road enough with them and gone, all right, that's fine. Like we will go on to the next person. But I think there is, yeah, I just think that there when you talk about the layers of helping people, um, you have a very wide, you can have a high risk with doing something like ketamine. But so that's why it's like, what kind of steps have they gone through before? And that's what we want to introduce the direct neurofeedback or the CS unit. I mean, the same person who didn't buy the direct neurofeedback from us bought 10 CS units for their patients. And so it's like, well, why don't you buy this? Why don't you get this as well for your patients? It's like, nah, we're good.
Explain that because what
They
was
just they just didn't see that. They're like, well, we have to train somebody, we have to do this thing. It doesn't fit within our business model. So that's the other part about it with any sort of practitioner is being like, does this fit into your business model? We had a rehab center that they said this doesn't fit within our business model.
because people who are recovering from addiction We-
Well, it just was like, we'd rather do group therapy. We'd rather do these other modalities that we fits in within our model. Talking about addiction, so I know this is a big part of it. This is clinically, or there's reports on this. This helps people who are going through opioids, so meth. They can use this and helps them get through the withdrawals. When you talk about any sort of addictions, sometimes it's stress related. Because this helps with their stress and direct neurofeedback helps with their stress, now they're not as likely to go back to that substance be, because their stress responses are down, because in their parasympathetic nervous system. But there are rehab centers that use the direct neurofeedback, and then there's also rehab centers that use this that they just hand out to their patients. We're in talks with Teen Challenge right now to actually get them 10 of these because they like it and they go, oh, we want to help. We want to hand this out to people and be able to have them help them with their anxiety.
So if I can go buy this and you can go, anybody can go buy this from you,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and use it themselves. It's FDA approved. What does it take for anybody to go help other people with the same thing, short of giving it as a gift to others? I mean, is there any professional training involved? It doesn't sound like there is to make this thing balance our brain.
I'll put it on right. Here's a tutorial. You put it on like this. You have to put water on your ears. That's the one step I didn't do. You put water on your ears. You take this, you turn it on, good to go.
How long? How long's a typical session before somebody feels something?
15, maybe 30 minutes. I would say 30 minutes. I Yeah, 30 minutes. I say when you first get it, do it in the morning, help you kind of focus for the day, see how you feel. Do it 30 minutes before night, see how your sleep is. I know when I use this, my dreams are like off the hook. Like that's my deep sleep is just I can just feel it a lot more when I use it.
So we're talking about an FDA approved device you can buy for under $300, plug and play, and balance a brain that's addicted, anxious, depressed, imbalanced in
Um,
very short periods of time.
Off-label headaches and pain.
Chronic pain.
Yep.
All right, let's shift gears. We've talked
Okay.
about foster care, children, and the epidemic there. The other big deal for all of us is what's happening with our veterans, the heroes,
Mhm.
the men and women protecting our freedom. What's your experience working with veterans, and what would you share as some success stories in this regard?
My dad's 60% of his caseload was veterans doing direct neurofeedback. There's a general, I think he's a general, maybe not a general, somebody who's up there in something, saying that every veteran coming out of the armed forces should be given one of these cranial electrical stimulation device. So from a veteran standpoint, a lot of veterans, so you're familiar with EMDR.
Tell us what it
Okay.
is. I
So EMDR is a very common healthcare uh, type of modality. Basically, what you're doing is you have a traumatic PTSD, you have a traumatic event that's going on. What you do is you follow someone's finger as you're reliving that event, and what the science part about it,
yeah,
yeah. So you do this,
yeah,
but you're
rapid eye movement.
a rapid eye movement. But the reason why rapid eye movement works is because your eyes are connected to the part of your brain that lives in your short-term memory. So by moving your eyes back and forth, you're jiggling the brain and allowing that short-term memory to move into your long-term memory. That's what EMDR is. A lot of veterans don't want to do that because they don't want to relive their worst day of their life. So what my dad saw with doing the direct neurofeedback is he just have them sit there and all of a sudden they go, what'd you just do to me? Like I didn't do anything. So the brain is automatically finding where those circuit points that aren't working correctly and fixing, or those memories are moving to the back part of their brain. So 60% of his caseload was veterans, and he had a very high success rate with them.
I know you have a lot of stories. I'd love to invite you back to the channel. I'd
Okay.
love to have you and your dad come back if he'd be willing at some point and share these powerful stories of transformation, which is what this channel is all about,
Mhm.
and it's what my writing passion is all about. Let's let's begin wrapping this up.
Yep.
You and your dad founded this business, and it's essentially a startup. Are you still working at your other job while you're
I
building this business?
I am. I
Okay.
am. This
Yeah.
is that's been the hardest part is just trying to find that big win of, from a business standpoint, so people that can point and go, no one wants to be first. I mean, Moneyball phrase, if you ever watch the movie Moneyball, it's one of my favorite movies. Nobody wants the first one through the wall is always the bloodiest. And so we're trying to work with a couple. We've got a couple NFL, like well, one NFL team and one D1 college football team that we're really close with that may get us through the wall.
And where would you say you need the most help?
Connections, people at organizations that go, I have a large population of people that are concussed or traumatized or any of those things, and they'd like help to setting up brain health and performance centers. We're able to do that at scale. That's our biggest thing. We do sell the CES unit online through our website. We also have we just started a brain club. So anybody who's in an individual that's looking for some help, we started a brain club on School. It's a community, it's videos, it's insight, it's a lot of things, all the things that we've done over the years compacted into a 30-day program. So it's a really, we give you a lot of resources. We work with you. We can work with you one-on-one if you want to, but we're just there to help people. And that's the best way that I think we can help people at scale from an individual standpoint is through this brain club.
And members of the Brain Club have access to the devices, buy the device
Yep.
themselves.
So we are giving a heavy discount on the device. Um, Anybody who is listening to this right now, I want you to email me at dallas@calmwaves.com and say, I want into the Brain Club. And by listening to this, I will give you free access to the Brain Club. We are charging $60 a month um, for the Brain Club. But if you're listening to this right now at dallas@calmwaves.com, say, I want into the Brain Club, I will add you in for free.
Phenomenal. Thank you very much for that. Just full disclosure, everybody. Dallas and I are friends, and there's nothing in this for me. This is an affiliate
Nope.
program. I'm not getting paid. Dallas and Comwaves are not a sponsor of the channel because we don't have any sponsors yet. We're too small. But this has been phenomenal, Dallas.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear more about the
Yep.
success stories you have. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
And for anybody listening to this, I'll make sure to have Dallas's email in the
Mhm.
description of the video. Dallas Cowan, co-founder of Comwaves, very much thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Cliff.